Hi, Ronn James, Real Estate's Most Wanted, back with Darren St.Jacques, Home Inspector with Nook and Cranny Home Inspections. We're now talking about water and plumbing in your house. So Darren, what's this?
Well, Ron, this is your water meter. It's attached to the pipe that comes from your utilities, and you can see here that we have a piece of copper wire attached to it. This, by the way, actually goes back to your electric panel, and this is your grounding for the electric system. So what it does, any stray electricity over there brings it over here, takes it directly into the ground. This is your shut-off valve. This is the main valve. If you turn this off, you have no water now coming into your house. So if you had an emergency, a pipe break or burst, you want to get here right away and shut that off. Good for all homeowners to know where this is. Through the meter, and then it gets distributed through the rest of the house.
Now this meter, is this where the utility company measures our usage? Do they have to come into the house and do that?
No, they don't. They used to years ago, but now what they have is this piece of telephone wire here. It goes outside to the little black discs that we see on the side of home.
Oh, that's what they are.
They go up and just do an automatic read right there.
Okay, so is there anything that, from a buyer's perspective, we should know about the meter here?
Well, obviously the location for an emergency. Also, just to make sure that we don't hang anything or bump this or knock it in any way, because a leak here could do a lot of damage. There's a lot of water coming in, and we just want to make sure that everything's good. From an inspection point of view, you just feel to see if there's any drips or leaks, any stainage. There's not. This is a good unit. It just needs to be kept protected.
So if this is the start of our plumbing, where do we go next?
Then we go through the house and we would look under the sinks, check the toilets and laundry areas, anything where the plumbing goes.
Can we do that now?
Let's go.
Okay, Darren, so we're upstairs now looking at the kitchen. From a home seller's point of view, for a home inspection, how do we get the house ready for you to do what you need to do for the plumbing inspection upstairs?
Well, the first thing that the homeowner should do for us is remove the items from under the cabinet. The typical, recycling bin, the detergents, cleaning solutions, etc., etc. Have this area open so we can actually have a good look underneath and make sure that everything's safe and sound.
Now, what are you looking for when we're looking at this?
Well, very typically what we look for, of course, is just the connections for all the plumbing to make sure that it's all tight, that there's no leaks. The other thing is to make sure that it's done properly. Sometimes people cut corners and they don't put the correct P-traps in there. P-traps, of course, are designed to stop any kind of sewer gases from entering.
What is a P-trap? Is there one on here?
One is, yeah. This is a P-trap here, Ron. You see the way it's in the shape of a P?
Oh, okay.
That's how they come up with that name. And what happens is it's filled with water all the way through, and that acts as a block for any gases that may come back through the sewage lines. And also what we look for under here is around the sink areas. Again, the connections, make sure everything's tight, it's not rusted. Even though it's stainless steel sinks, they do tend to rust a bit over time over here. And also we can see here we have our connection coming from the dishwasher. This would be your drain line. This is your water supply line. And it has its own shut off, which is important in case there's a problem with that. You need to be able to shut that off very quickly. One other thing we do is we run the taps.
Oh, okay.
So we would turn the taps on, make sure that it's draining properly.
That's why we do it, just strictly for drainage?
Just for
drainage.
We're
not looking for some kind of flow or water flow?
We are. We're also testing to see that there's adequate flow here to make sure that if there was an aerator on here, an aerator's job, of course, is to introduce air into the water. It reduces consumption and makes for a nice even stream. And we also want to make sure that our fixture is tight and not loose. If it is, we just make a note of that and say it's a little maintenance item, needs to tighten up the handles. We don't want somebody turning on and having it come off in their hand. So.
Now, with the plumbing side of it, we've kind of looked at where the water comes in, we've looked at our kitchen sink. Where do we go from here?
Well, we would also go and check the bathrooms and make sure that the toilet is tight to the floor so that there's no leakage and again, any gases coming through. And we would also make sure that the bathroom sink is also plumbed in properly.
Well, let's go have a look.
Okay, that's good.
Okay, Darren, so we're now at the toilet level. What are we looking for in an inspection from your point of view with the toilet?
Well, first thing we like to do, Ron, is just give it a little wiggle. See that it's bolted down nice and tight to the floor. It's important because there's a wax seal underneath, and that wax seal job, of course, is to stop any water from leaking out and damaging the floor and or letting the gases come back through the house again. The other thing that we like to look for is to ensure that the integrity of the tank to bowl is good. So we move the tank itself, again, make sure there's no leakage. And on the side, there's a shut-off valve. All toilets should have their own separate individual shut-off valve. Make sure that there's no leaks, no issues with that if anything was to happen, because there's such a large flow of water, you want that turned off immediately.
Speaking of the large flow of water, what about tanks that are running or they sound like they're running? Is that something that we should be concerned about, a fix?
Yeah,
how do we know?
Yeah, I wouldn't say, overly concerned. It is a regular occurrence that the components inside a tank, I'll pull the lid off and show you, they do wear down after time. You have your typical component, which is the float, and its job, of course, is as the water rises, it shuts off the flow of water. Sometimes that can be unadjusted, and we just make some adjustment with the screw here, and that will set the proper limits. Very often you can see it tells you water level should be right at that level there. And or the flapper valve itself that lets the water pass through to the bowl cannot seat properly or just get worn over time, and that can be replaced. Pretty much any hardware store has the stuff, very inexpensive. And most homeowners can do this. Shut the water off, drain out the tank, change the part, and you're good to go.
Excellent. So now what else in the bathroom should we be concerned about as far as an inspection and things that you're looking for the buyer?
Well, again, staying with the plumbing and the sinks, we like to make sure, again, that the sink itself is good shape, the faucet is nice and tight, good water flow coming through. And again, as in the kitchen, make sure that we have access to the plumbing underneath. You have your supply, hot and cold water supply lines, and then you have your drainage lines. And again, we can see our P-trap here, nice and tight, good connections, no leakage, and check the hand. Make sure that there's no leakage around your supplies. And under the sink, there's no rust marks. So it's pretty basic and straightforward, but it's just a good idea to have a look at it all the way, get in, put your head in there and check.
Now there is also always an outlet, electrical outlet in the bathroom. Should we be concerned about that, or are there special ones?
There is, Ron, that's a good question. There's ground fault circuit interrupters, or GFCIs for short. They need to be used in all areas around any wet locations, i.e. the kitchen, the bathrooms, exterior garages. And their job is very simply to trip if there's any loss in amperage or electricity immediately. As opposed to a regular outlet that would take over 15 amps before it ever tripped the breaker in the house. These with less than half an amp will trip off immediately, saving lives. And we can see here we have one, and I'm going to do a quick test. This is a little tester that most hardware stores carry right here on, and it allows me to plug it in, tells me there's power. I press the button, it trips it. And then there's a reset button, and everything's back to normal again. So everything's functioning properly with that outlet.
Excellent. So that pretty much covers what we need to know about our plumbing from our buyer's perspective and what to have ready for the home inspector from the seller's perspective.
Great.
Excellent. Thank you again.
Thank you, Ron.
Ronn James, Real Estate's Most Wanted. That'd be me.